Hey everyone, welcome to the first rankings video, starting with goalkeepers in Serie A fantasy. Last season's most valuable goalkeeper was Ivan Prevedal. As you see here, you'll actually notice that he doesn't make my list for top five coming into the season, especially with that price tag of 6.0, which is the highest price tag of any keeper. Some are also tied for it, as you'd see along here. But we're going to go through starting with five all the way to what I think the best keeper would be. And after my draft video yesterday, I actually have switched to this goalkeeper, and we'll explain why he wasn't there in the first place shortly. But without further ado, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will start with number five. Number five is Rui Patricio at 5.0 mil. With Dybala being injured, I originally wanted Dybala in, as with Roma, some of the midfield positions are a little up in the air. Same with some of the defense. Ibanez just went. Chris Smalling's probably locked in there. But other than that, sometimes they're wing backs. We're not really sure who's starting all the time. So Rui Patricio is the surefire way into the defense if you're not going to pay the extra for Chris Smalling. It does take away, obviously, a Roma spot, one of your two Roma spots out of the team. But right now, besides either Dybala when he comes back, maybe Tammy Abraham or Chris Smalling, those would probably be the only three Roma players that I'd be looking at, and all of them are a little pricey. Maybe Tammy not as much for his position, but for their position, Dybala and Chris Smalling are relatively pricey in that area. Um, at least this way, though, you're avoiding the $6.0 million price tag for a keeper that I really wouldn't want to spend for still a keeper on a big team, especially with the fixtures Roma has to start out the season. Second is Mike Mignon. For second or number four slot, I should say, is Mike Mignon. I think I have to have him in here because he probably is the best keeper in Serie A right now, but he does come with that 6.0 price tag. Milan probably going to have another good season. They actually, I guess, barely squeaked into a Champions League this year, but they're still probably going to have a good season, a lot of good transfers, and I could see them keeping a significant amount of clean sheets. Once again, though, when you have these keepers from big teams, that is going to be taking away a spot from Milan. So as far as I wouldn't want any of their attacking options other than Leao right now, I could just because you don't know how many minutes the likes of like Pulisic and some of the other maybe new players or rotated players will be getting this season, if more will be nailed on or not. But I felt like Mike Mignon had to be on the list here. Number three, one that I kind of have a decent amount to say about is Pietro Tetrashanu, the Fiorentina keeper, because Fiorentina, let's face it, they haven't been great in the past few seasons. But they do have a lot of elite Serie A history as well, and they are a club that can draw players. Um, and so while they probably won't finish, I'd say necessarily even in the top six, they could be a team that gets a decent amount of wins and puts together some clean sheets. But when they do face those top teams, they're likely to get a lot of shots on them as well, and they generally don't get blown out. So they might not get too many -1s for goals, but might get a significant amount of +1s for every two saves. So something to keep in mind there. Very cheap price for a starting keeper for, I'd say, a middling team at 4.6. So you definitely have a lot more money to progress into your defense, midfield, and attack. The only thing is, I haven't necessarily heard any rumors. I don't know if anyone else has, but if they will be trying to sign a different keeper for Fiorentina. I'm not sure if he's meant to be the main man for the club or not. So if you're a Fiorentina fan, let me know what is going on at the club as far as the goalkeeper situation. Number two, Juan Musa, who I originally had in my draft yesterday as my starting keeper. He is under 5 mil on a good team in Serie A. And I find Atalanta is one of those teams that like it's really hard to predict anywhere who's going to be a consistent starter. You know, guys that'll be playing, I'd say maybe like 70% of the games, but it's hard to pick a surefire player that's going to be playing 80 to 100% of the games. But Juan Musa would be the starting keeper there at 4.8 mil. That's a nice price, even below kind of that second bracket of goalkeepers at the 5.0 range. And he has had good history in the past as being a good goalkeeper. But the last one who just got added to Serie A Fantasy yesterday, Jens Sommer at 5 mil. Yes, he's 0.2 more than Musa. I do think Jens Sommer will jump right in for the starting keeper spot. Inter's expected, from what I've heard, they're the team expected to win Serie A this year, just before the season started, obviously. It's an amazing price for a top tier keeper. I'd say why go with a 6.0 like Provedel or Mignon when you can get Sommer for 5.0. I'd say the only downsides of it is he's not proven in Serie A, but he is proven to be a great goalkeeper in the past. And it does take away an Inter spot. So there are quite a few Inter players that you might want in the future. DeMarco's a good option, Lautaro Martinez, and then some of their midfielders like Barilla's done well in the past and stuff. So it does take away that you can only have one other of those players. But I just think it's a great option to get into the Inter defense. You don't really have to worry about rotation too much. I don't think any of their backup keepers are even front of mind at all for starting any games that wouldn't be like a Coppa Italia game or something like that. I can see some are getting basically all Serie A and Champions League games. But let me know what you think. Am I leaving anyone out? I guess what like Shenzi could be considered as part of like kind of in the same area as Rui Patricio. Some other ones that I looked at, I'd go with Tatarashanu over Ochoa, who's the same price. But those are some other guys that you might be looking at. But the last slide that I do have for you is as far as a backup keeper, for me, pick as cheap as possible because I don't know of any that are necessarily starting. At below the 4.4 range, 4.6 range. So I would just pick a 3.8 keeper from a team that you don't care about taking up a spot with. So these are the options kind of that I have. Bologna's, Lecce's, Udinese's, Verona's, who I currently have, Torino's, and Salernitana's. All of them are teams that I probably won't have two players from, and they're all 3.8 price, so you can get a goalkeeper from. If we do find that one of these or a 4.0 or even a 4.2 keeper is a starting goalkeeper as well, and then you could have a bit of rotation for when your starting keeper has one of those tough fixtures, it may be worth maybe making that 0.2, 0.4 to have two starting goalkeepers. But right now, I don't see that. Let me know if one of these are expected to be a starting goalkeeper, but none that I know of right now. But this is what I would be picking for my backup goalkeeper. Other than that, please, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. Let me know your thoughts on this top 5 ranking for goalkeepers. And tomorrow we should get out with our defenders. Take care.